It's
Well,
just after 8.
Maybe we should just informally introduce ourselves before we get going. So my name is Dale Lutz. I'm one of the 2 co-founders of Safe Software.
Nice, thanks Dale. I'll go quickly. I'm Stephanie. I'm going to be behind the scenes moderating the webinar. So transitioning, looking at some of the questions coming in. If you're having any troubles with the platform, let me know in the chat and you can find me there.
And I am Andrea Eisma. I'm one of the technical experts here at SAFE, and I focus mainly on CAD, but also I like Excel, and I'll be leading you in a couple of demos.
I'm Mark Stokes. I'm also on the experts team here at SAFE, and been with the company just over 20 years now.
And I'm Chris Berger, and just like Andrea and Mark, I'm also on the experts team. I'll be going through one of the last demos with automating Excel in FME Server.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, I think with that, why don't we hide our webcam so we can save kind of the bandwidth? I know sometimes GoTo can get overloaded, and you guys can take it away.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in this morning. This is, I think, our 3rd webinar that we've done over the years on Excel at SAFE, about how to automate the movement of data going through Excel. Mark has said that this is the last one he's going to do. I think he's been on all 3 so far. And so everybody pay careful attention. This is sort of Mark's farewell hurrah. So we're in for a bit of a treat there. I was looking back at the recordings and so on from our 2013 outing. It was one of Stephanie's first webinars she did with us. And I'm pleased to say that a lot hasn't changed and a lot has gotten easier and better, and we're delighted to be showing you that today. We're going to be going through a number of interesting and different scenarios about the automation of the data movement using FME, our product, through Excel. So we're going to try to explain why there's a nice combination between these 2 things. The market has kind of shown that they do agree with us. According to our usage stats, Excel is the 2nd most used format. It's close behind AutoCAD actually, ahead of AutoCAD, but it's a sort of a battle there for number 2 spot. And number 1, of course, is the mighty shapefile, which we talk about fairly often as well. But anyway, lots of folks out there using FME with Excel to great value. We're going to try to introduce you to some of the differences in vocabulary today, because it is a little different mindset. Using FME with Excel requires a little different approach to problems than if you're an Excel wizard you normally have, but the 2 complement each other very well. Then we get into all the demos, and there are some really interesting ones that you'll want to stay tuned for, and we'll leave you with a bunch of resources. And of course, throughout, be ready and anxious and able to send us your questions, and our team will be answering you. The interactivity part of this is always something we're very excited about and look forward to and study afterwards. So please give us your thoughts, your suggestions, your ideas, your hints along the way. So what we're hoping you can take away from today is that you'll learn ways of preparing, integrating, automating the movement of Excel data in a fraction of the time you'd do otherwise. So that's really what we're looking for here, is letting you spend less time fighting with your data and more time using it. And a lot of the world's data goes through Excel. It either shows up in there to begin with, it's dumped out of a database into there, it's passed through there on its way to be reported. And so there's a lot of important things you can do there. Another part of prepare, I guess I'd say, is understanding and ensuring quality. I remember Ulf Monson from Sweco mentioned that there's a conference each year on Excel, actually, on data quality. And there's so many terrible errors that creep into Excel spreadsheets that sometimes cause bad decisions to be made. And so having ways of testing the quality, sanity checking, and so on is very important. And that's part of one of the things we'll show today too. Whoa, so that means it's time for me to already do a flash demo. And what I want to show is how we can split a spreadsheet into multiple worksheets in just a few clicks. And I'm not going to quite reprise the one I did in 2013. You can check the archive if you want to see that one. I did get a little bit of not the best feedback on that. I was using that time as today data from the Vancouver open data portal. But on that same site is a list of all the dead animals that have been found in Vancouver for the last 10 years. And it's actually a fascinating data set, but we're not going to look at that today. So instead, we're going to try the business licenses, which is a little less controversial, but still interesting, and look at that a bit. So here it is in all of its glory in Excel. It's a dump of the database from September 15th. And you can see we've got all these fields, but the one that I'm quite interested in is the status. And what I would really like to do is be able to separate this into some different sheets based on status. Now there's several thousand rows in here, but I'm in particular interested in making a sheet or making a new spreadsheet where this is split out so I can get the ones that are out of business compared to the ones that are active today, and then maybe all the other stragglers. Now I know that if I was in Excel, I could sort by column F, and then I could go and find the out of business ones and then kind of select some rows and copy and paste. And yes, if that's all I need to do once, that might be a good way to do it if it was small enough and reasonable enough. But if I need to do this more than once, then that's going to get a bit tiring. So here's how we would approach that in a repeatable way using this product that we call FME. Here it is, Workbench has been started. That's our flagship authoring tool. It tells me type to add, or I can drag and drop files here. So I'm going to just go and find my business licenses file. I'm going to drag it on here, say, sure, let's just add that. There it is. It appears, its definition for the sheet shows up here. And I can turn on what's called feature caching, which is a capability inside of FME that it remembers your data at each step. And so I'm going to run this just to kind of get this primed up and loaded. And now I can see down at the bottom all of my data. And yes, the status is there and other things like that. And so now what I can do is start to add manipulation to this. So I'm going to put down what's called a test filter. So I'm going to test for a few things. I just type on the canvas, hit enter. Because I had selected this, it's automatically connected. I pop this up and I want to say if, let's see, if the status is equal to, and boy, I don't remember what the values were. But I can go here and say cached values and say, oh yeah, okay, if it's gone out of business, that's what I'm interested in. I'm going to then say out of business is the name of the port I'm going to put that out to. And then I'm going to do another one, which is basically everything that is currently going. So if the status equals, and then I'm going to say issued. Issued is the ones that are basically rolling along. They're just fine. And I'm going to call this in business. And then the last ones I'm going to call dormant. There's sort of a grab bag of other statuses that I'm going to just call that for now. So now I've got 3 outputs. This is going to filter there. If I want to, I can run and see, and I can click on, let's say, the first one. And sure enough, all the statuses here are gone out of business. So we can see kind of what they are. Kind of sad to see some of these companies. Of course, there's a story behind each one. And now I want to actually save this. So I'm going to add a writer here, and I'm going to say that I want to do an Excel writer. And the name, I'm going to just, I'll pop it into the same directory that I was just working in. We'll save it as revised licenses. Probably not the best name. I'm going to copy my output definitions for the sheets from the reader. So here we go. There it is. And there's an output one. And I'm going to take the out of business one and drag it over there. I'm going to hit F2 to rename this. This one's going to be out of business. Okay. And then now I want to save the other one. So I'm just going to duplicate this one. And actually going to duplicate it twice. Here we go. And this one is going to be the in business. And we'll drag that over to connect it. And last one is going to be the ones I called dormant. All right. And so that done, I go ahead and run this. And it says it's finished, which is a happy thing. And now I could look at it here. If I hit this button, then FME will show me what it thinks is in the Excel. But hey, we're doing Excel, so let's look at it in Excel. Let's double click it. The revised licenses should come up. And whoa, thank you, Dropbox, for that useless notification. But yeah, now I've got the 3 tabs there, and it has separated these all for me. And that's just a very, very quick taste, because now I could give this to any of my friends and they would understand what's going on. And if I get a new spreadsheet from the City of Vancouver's open data set or data site, I can have that run through here and set this up to run every night or to pull the data automatically. And now this just can happen while I'm sleeping. And so that was my flash demo. Let's see what happens if I go back here. So again, thanks to the Vancouver open data people. And so what we hope that you're going to take from this is that there's ways of setting up repeatable workflows where you work at the definition of the data as opposed to directly manipulating the data, so you can do it repeatedly. When you use Excel, normally you're directly copying and pasting and fiddling around. Here you're working at sort of a level up at a workflow level. You set that up, and now it can be run over and over again without actually doing any manual work. After all, the mission of Safe Software is to help all of you maximize the value of your data. We want you to use your data and not fight with it. And since a lot of your data is coming in and out of Excel, that's why we focus so hard on making these workflows delightful, honestly, as best we can for you. You saw me using one piece of FME. There's really 3-ish parts of FME. There's the FME desktop, which is installed on Windows, Mac, Linux even. There you'll find the Workbench tool, which is great for authoring these workflows, for solving a problem one-off quickly, or for creating these rules and then setting them up to be run over and over again when you get different data. We also have FME Server, where you can take these rules, these transformations you made on the desktop, and put them up on a server and let them run while you're sleeping in response to a user interaction or a file arriving in a directory. All these automation things are possible there. And I think Chris is going to show us some stuff about that at the end. And lastly, FME Cloud is just FME Server, pay by the hour. Coming in from the side is something we call FME Data Express, which is a mobile app that lets you run the workflows from FME Server. In fact, delivering spreadsheets down to mobile is a wonderful thing you can do with FME Server's apps and using FME Data Express to quickly and easily run those workflows. Definitely worth checking out. That works on iOS and Android. And I think with that, with only 2 seconds left in my time, I'm giving it over to Andrea.
Nice, thanks, Dale. Perfect, that looks good, Andrea. I'll just mention quickly that we are recording this webinar as well, so you can watch the demos back at your own pace, and we'll also be sharing out the workspaces and slides. All right, thanks, Andrea, it's all you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Dale, for that great introduction and that flash demo. We saw Dale use a repeatable workflow. So FME is not meant to replace Excel. Instead, it should be used to complement and add to your Excel data. So how does it do this? Well, using FME workspaces, you can create workflows that are reused for tasks that are similar and repeatable. In these workflows, you can preserve data integrity, integrate different data sources, validate data, and automate tasks to increase productivity. If you've also received large Excel data sheets from a colleague, you may have been stumped on how they came up with their result. A visual tool like FME allows you to visualize each step taken in the process, which can help improve discussion and collaboration amongst coworkers. Lastly, you can share the end result of these workflows by using FME Server to create automations or FME Server apps. This can reduce the number of requests that you might be getting for these Excel files. By creating an automation, you can schedule the workflows, or you can set up a directory watch to further automate sharing the reports. Or you could create an FME Server app to allow users to self-serve and quickly download the files that they need. We'll be showing all of this in our few demos. But before we do that, I just want to cover a couple of terminology, just so that we're all on the same page if you're new to using Excel and FME. So the first is a spreadsheet or a workbook in Excel is a reader or writer data set. A worksheet or a named range is a feature type in FME. A column in a worksheet is an attribute in FME, and a row in a worksheet is a feature. So what are the 5 ways to improve your Excel data? We have 5 demos we're going to show you today. We'll first start off with a simple demo, just expanding on Dale's flash demo and refining that. I'll talk about formatting and validating your data as well, writing out to a new Excel sheet. Mark is going to show us how we can integrate different data sets and distribute it to other formats as well. In a 4th demo, Mark is going to show us pivot tables and utilizing your existing Excel knowledge. And lastly, Chris will show how you can further automate your reports by using FME Server and FME Server apps. For the first demo, I'm going to show you how to read Excel data and a couple of simple operations, including joining, filtering, and splitting your data. The main objective of this demo is to restructure the source data set, essentially automating cutting and pasting. So first, I'd like to show you what our original data looks like. This is the same data set that Dale was using. This is from the City of Vancouver Open Data Portal. It's about business licenses. We've altered this a little bit for the demo. I'd like you to take note of 2 things. The first thing is we have a header for the business license. And the business sheet has the metadata about businesses. Our second sheet has information about these licenses, such as that status we saw earlier Dale used, as well as the expiration and number of employees. Now, how the end result is going to look is we're going to have more than just 2 sheets. So this is what the end file will be creating in FME. We're going to have a summary sheet, an unpaid license sheet, and then we're going to have multiple extra sheets where it is based off of the status. So going into FME, you'll see I've already run this workspace. We saw Dale build reader and writer from scratch. I've already added my reader in. We can see our business data here and click on the magnifying glass to get a visual preview. One thing I mentioned about was the header. I just want to show you quickly about making sure that your data is where it needs to be. So if we look at our source data set, we'll get a preview of this data by opening up our parameters. When we do that, we want to make sure that our business information page, because we had that header, we want it to be picking up the field names from the second row. So we'll need to make sure that we change this so that it picks up from the second row. And you can now see that I have my attribute names in this preview, which is how I have my current reader set up. The other thing I'd like you to take note of is that we are able to identify the data types. Specifically, we can identify the date as well. You'll see the expired date and the date here. I'm going to cancel out of there as I already have my reader here. Now, because we have 2 different sheets, I need to join them together. To do that, I've used the feature joiner. I'm using the unique license attribute that is available on both of those sheets. So I'm joining them together. I'm setting the join mode to inner so that I'm only getting the matching unique identifiers for the licenses. From there, I'm using a test filter and I'm looking for unpaid licenses. So that is where no fee has been paid, but the status of the license is issued. From there, I'm writing that out to its own sheet, which you can see here. Now to create the summary sheet, I'm using the statistics calculator to calculate the total count of the fees paid, as well as the average of the fees paid. Opening up this license fee summary, if I look at my user attributes, I've added in 2 extra attributes, the number to give me the total count of the fees paid, which I've used by setting from an attribute value, And the average free I'm setting from the statistics calculator is the mean of the output. Now, to get all the extra sheets based on the status, I'm using a feature type fan out. What is a feature type fan out? A feature type fan out uses a attribute to systematically separate your data. So in here, you'll see I have a 2020 license status, and I've selected one of the attributes so that it will fan out based on the status. So we can have more than one sheet. So your data is driving the amount of sheets that will be created. The other side of a fan out that I'm doing is, so I just showed you a feature type fan out. The other sort of fan out is a data set fan out. In this fan out, I'm fanning out based on today's date and formatting it in a year, month, and date format using FME's date time functions, which are available in this fan out expression box. Now I've already run this morning, and so I can open up and show you that this was run this morning, and we can see that the file has today's date. And if I open that file up again, we'll then see that it has been fanned out. So just a quick summary as to what I just showed you in our first demo. We used a feature joiner to merge a test filter to separate our data, the stats calculator to summarize our data, and we restructured our data using a feature type fan out so that we can create multiple sheets. Honestly, using the feature type fan out can be super useful if you're needing to split your data based on what the incoming data values are if you don't know what they are beforehand. Awesome. Now I'm going to show you a second demo, and the objective of the second demo is we're going to refine the data that we were using in our first demo. We're going to style and validate that data and share it to our organization in SharePoint. I'd like to show you what it looks like at the end. So this is what we'll be working towards. You'll see I have a shareable URL, which is in SharePoint. So this file has been shared up to SharePoint. And you can see we have 3 data sheets, a license fee summary that is color coded depending on the status, which matches the license status information page as well. And we also have a data error report, which is going to show us what the error is with the validation checks that we will do in FME. So going to our second demo in FME Workbench, we already have our business data here, but one thing I'd like you to take note of is we have an extra field with the website. And I'll be showing you how you can hyperlink the business name so you don't have a separate website attribute anymore. So we've joined our data together, we've created the statistics and summarized our fees. The next is our attribute validation. How we're doing this is using the attribute validator. You'll see we have a few different attributes here where we're checking to make sure that they have a value, that they match a certain structure, that they're in a certain data type or within a range. From there, we're writing all of the failed information out, as we only want to be checking what does not match our validation rules. In FME, we can also check what the validation message is. So in this first one, we can see that the expired date is does not match it being of date type. Now for the hyperlink and making the business name a hyperlink, to do this, we create an attribute called businessname.hyperlink. I'm then setting the value to the website so that the Excel reader will pick this up and create the Excel file with a hyperlink for the business name. I'm then removing the website attribute as this is no longer needed. From there, I'll zoom in a little bit. We're going to be filtering and styling our data based on the status of the license. To do this, we're using the Excel styler and applying the style to the entire row and setting the background color. So for each of these, we're setting a different color. I'm using the same logic here after the statistics calculator. Now you'll notice I'm using a feature writer to write out to Excel. This will allow me to do some post-processing and share to SharePoint Online. But before I do that, I'd like to show you one more style that you can add to your Excel file. This is a custom number format. So if you go into the user attributes of a feature type, you can edit and format one of your attributes. So I'm creating a custom number format so that I can highlight any of the businesses that are reporting 0 employees for their business. So I'm doing this by setting the color of the number to red. From there, I'm writing the Excel file and uploading this to SharePoint Online. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that again for you, and we're going to launch it in Google Chrome. I'm just using the system caller to help me, so I don't have to copy and paste, as I am feeling a little bit. Oh, looks like I had an issue. I think that might be because my file is open. Let's try that again. There we go. And so with the SharePoint Online connector, we can see I've created a connection to my SharePoint. I'm uploading it. I'm using an attribute. Oops. I'll just go back here. Sorry about that. I'm using an attribute to specify where that local data is on my computer, because that's coming from the feature writer. I'm also creating that sharing link, which I then sent to the system caller just because I'm a little bit lazy and I didn't want to copy and paste the sharing link. And we can see that it automatically launched this SharePoint Excel file. And I can also check in my Excel on my SharePoint, and we can see that this new file was written just a few seconds ago. So just to sum up what I showed, we validated our data by creating rules. We created a hyperlinked text. We styled and emphasized our data by row and color. And we wrote our Excel file and uploaded it to SharePoint. I'd say there's quite a few different tips for this demo. Using the Excel styler, if you need to set background colors or format different numbers, that is a handy transformer to use. You can also validate and preserve data using FME. There are many different validator transformers to use, not just the attribute validator. And we've also started to add in many web connectors, and most recently the SharePoint Online connector, so you can easily share your data with your organization. And Mark will be showing us a little bit more about how you can further use the data that I just published.
Yeah, so far we've been looking at Excel to Excel translations, but although most of the world's data is stored in Excel, we can also integrate our Excel data with many other data sets. So that's what I'm going to show you right now. And so we can combine Excel with other data sets. We can enhance the Excel data that we've got. We can add geocoding. Sometimes there's a spatial context to your data. A lot of Excel data comes with a lat long or a location associated with it, so we can convert that into a geometry. You might also have some other spatial data like a shape file, and you might want to pull some of that information from your data set. So in a demo I'm going to give you now, we've got some neighborhoods in Vancouver, and we want to add that to the business licenses by doing a spatial join. So let's have a quick look at how we can pull down the Excel spreadsheet from that SharePoint site that Andrea was looking at, merge the data with some open data from the City of Vancouver's open data website, and do a couple of spatial joins and so on. So the data we're going to look at here, I've got up in my data inspector. There it is. What I've got here is we've got the business license data here in pink. That's the results of the translation I'm going to do, sourced out of the Excel spreadsheet. In blue here, we've got the location of some of the Vancouver schools. And also we've got, I've got some of the neighborhood data. Here are the neighborhoods that we've got in the city of Vancouver. And we're going to attach the neighborhood name to the business licenses that we've got in our data set. Okay, so let's have a quick look at what that workspace might look like. Oops. Here's the workspace I've built there. I've already run that earlier this morning. And so what I'm doing here is I'm reading the CSV file here. We can see here that instead of just reading a file, what we've got here in that pop-up, you can see I'm pulling that file right off the open dataset in Vancouver using a URL instead of a directory. And so that data will come down. It'll be the freshest data that City of Vancouver can give us, and also the same for the shapefile data there. I could do the same for the business license data, but Andrea's already pre-processed that. So instead of using an Excel reader straight out of the box there, what we've done is add a SharePoint connector to look at the list of files that are up there on Andrea's SharePoint online. And also I've added a second SharePoint connector to pull down the file that we want to work with from that SharePoint. And then instead of using a straight reader in FME, we can also use a transformer, which is the feature reader, which is just another place that you can add readers to FME. And the advantage of the feature reader is that it allows you to pre-process, do some data pre-processing, and then trigger the read of the data. Whereas if you use a standard reader in FME, you don't really have any opportunity to work with the data before we start to read it. So I'm going to geocode that data. We've got a geocoder in FME, and we've got a whole bunch of different geocoding services that you can use. So that's pretty flexible. And whichever one you subscribe to will give you different sort of ideas. In this case here, I've got the address string that I'm building up from the different fields that we've got in the Excel spreadsheet. And one of the questions this morning from one of the users is, can I pass an an address string? And actually, many of the geocoding services will take an address string if you have a single string and pass it out and break it out into separate attributes. So that is one way of passing a single string that represents your addresses. I've also got here a point on area overlayer. So this is where we're doing the spatial join between the Excel spreadsheet and the neighborhoods in the city of Vancouver. And then what we also want to do is we want to find out what kind of businesses are close to the schools within the city of Vancouver. If some of those businesses are liquor or cannabis stores, we might want to pay them a regular visit to make sure they're not selling to underage children. So we've got the neighbor finder here, which matches location data from different sources and allows us to see which points are close to other points. And so I've run that already, and the results pop up here in my data inspector. Here I've got a situation where I've got a business license that is pretty close to a school. It's the Muse Cannabis store. And so we've flagged that in the attribute manager as being close to the school and might need watching. So that's what the school proximity attribute is. And that is done here in the attribute manager in a conditional test that we can build right within the attribute manager to set an attribute. Okay, so just in summary, we can pull the data back down from SharePoint, just as Andrea showed us how we could load it up. We can extract data from websites so that we get the most current data, geocoding, adding some spatial context to your existing data, doing spatial joins and nearest neighborhoods to add more detail to your Excel data, setting attributes using conditional expressions, and then in my case, I was writing out to a database which happened to be a SQL server. Tips there in that demo, nice conditional testing in FME to set different attribute values if that's appropriate. Easy to download data from your SharePoint or other web sources. And of course, one of the real strengths of FME is that we have great support for locational spatial data. And so you should really take advantage of that if that's part of your workflow. Okay, moving on and switching data sets to some weather data that we have. The great thing about FME, as Andrea had mentioned, is that FME can leverage the Excel knowledge that you already has. So Excel has great tools for creating charts, pivot tables, and reports, and quite sophisticated reports. And so if you're already comfortable with those, you should carry on using them. FME can help you prepare and validate your data for loading into an Excel dashboard. And so you can load a data sheet using FME, and voila, you can have an Excel report based on the configuration that you created in what we call a template. So let's have a look at a workspace that might do that. And in this case, it's a very simple workspace indeed. This is a workspace that does that for us. So we're reading some weather data that comes from the Government of Canada, doing some simple manipulation on the attribute manager. In this case, actually, what I'm doing is creating a formula. So I can create a formula in the syntax of a Excel formula and write that out. So Excel will start to do that calculation for us. And then I'm writing that out to a sheet in our weather data. Now, the difference here that we've added is I'm now writing to a named range. And that's what the slash here in the / means. So this is the sheet name, and then weather table is the named range. And that named range is going to tie in with what we call a template sheet in FME. And so a template is really just a pre-existing Excel spreadsheet where you've already configured the report that you'd like to look at. So what does that look like? This is the template that I'm writing to. So it's got a named range, and so under the name manager, we can quickly look at that. That's the existing range of that named range, weather table. And what we can do is we can then configure our pivot tables and summary charts and other reports using that named range. And once we've done that, we can now come back, and in FME, we can read some data, validate it, add some value to it if we want to, and then load that into this sheet, which has got the named range in it, and that will give us a new report. So instead of having weather data from 2005 to 2009, we might grab some additional weather data and write that out. So all I'm doing there is writing to that named range in the raw data spreadsheet, and voila, we get that updated report in the way that you have configured it, and you can keep your reports up to date without doing a bunch of cut and pasting. So they're complementary products. Leverage your existing knowledge of Excel, creating charts, pivots, even 3D maps that we're going to have a look at in a little moment. Use an Excel template file, which is basically just a starting point that has your Excel configuration in it, and then you can update that data without having to cut and paste. So Excel named ranges are great for raw data and configuring your charts, and keep leveraging your Excel knowledge. So other things that we can do with Excel, just a few more ideas, is you can write images into your spreadsheets as well. So this is just a spreadsheet that has some thumbnails of data sets from around the world. So it's kind of like a metadata catalog. And then I think Chris is now going to take over and show us how you might actually create a map within Excel. Is that right, Chris?
Yep. And that will all be using the magic of template file as well. So let's make sure we're sharing the right screen here. And here we are in Workbench. All right, so how we're going to make a 3D map with the pie chart as well is really just living based off of that Excel template file again. So let's just open up the writer just to show we're going to be using that same template file that Mark showed in the previous one. And in this translation, all we're going to be doing is really just building a summary report. So we have all of our licenses. We want to write that to a new workbook with a summary page that includes a pie chart and a 3D map. So kind of a mini BI report. So if we take a look at the source data set, it's just that same list of licenses. And if I were to run it in FME Desktop using that same workspace that I just showed, you get an output that looks a little bit something like this, where we have now a business summary page, and you see that there's a new pie chart that shows the distribution of the business types. And what you can also have is the 3D maps. So let's take a second to load this up here. Okay, the 3D map looks like from that template file. This is all updated with that same data set that we just processed with FME. And it gives you a little bit of a mini BI report. So you can kind of hover around with your mouse and see what's going on at a glance with every point. And you can choose the different distributions of how you want to represent things. So if you want to make it a heat map, that's an option. We have bar charts and areas here. So that's essentially, in a nutshell, that's what's happening in this workspace. If we were to run this on FME Desktop, it would just be kind of at my own pace, or as someone was asked earlier, you could schedule this with the task scheduler and have it running on your machine locally. But you can also have this published to FME server, and that's really what this demo is going to be more about. So I'm going to show you two different ways of how you can automate your workspaces. The first being a workspace app, and I'm just going to highlight this bookmark down here, which is streaming data. So if you need your users to be able to have the ability to upload their data set and create these reports, or just to be able to submit them and be returned with a file, or even to just submit the files for them to be processed for someone in the back end, those are all very great options for workspace apps. In this case, I'm going to be showing you an example of how you can allow your users to upload a file, so a business license file just like the one we've seen, and have the results streamed back to them in the browser right then and there. The second option that I'm going to go through is using an automation, and that would be if you want to have the ability to have FME server watching a directory, and this could be a directory, an FTP site, or even receiving an email. And this will be a way to kick off an automation which will run the workspace and notify key stakeholders. So two different ways you can automate your Excel reporting. So let's hop into FME server here. So this would be the first workspace app that I'll be showing you. Simply have to, if I can find my file explorer now. There we go. Just coming off of the second screen here, just going to drag in that file. And as you can see, it's just uploading itself to FME server. Once it reaches 100%, we can go ahead and run it. I already have this ready, so we don't have to wait for it so long. But you can see that you get a very similar look and feel to that same Excel workbook summary page. So we get the same pie chart. All of these are a little bit more customizable, or not customizable, but more interactive on the web app, because you can kind of cross things off and play around with it that way. This is one very simple example of a summary report using HTML, but this might be all your users need. So this could be perfect for what you're looking for. If you want people to have the ability to, pardon me, download the entire folder, you can have a mix of both services. So if you want people to be able to see the results, you would use the data streaming service. But in the back end, you can also write up to SharePoint or Google Drive and get a download link that you can include in your streaming report. So this will only work if you're writing to a file that exists on your SharePoint or Google Drive already. The link can't change. If you do need it to change, then you'll have to do some additional steps in the workspace to make sure you're getting the correct link. But in my case, I'm writing to an existing file on Google Drive, so I can see it exactly this way. So that's just a nice, simple way of using a workspace app to allow users to upload their files and see the results instantly. And that's just a great way to see summaries kind of at a glance. The second option that we have here is using automations. So using automations, there's a number of different triggers that you can use to start an automation. In this case, we're using directory modified, but people always love asking, so we'll just go through quickly what the other triggers are. And this includes things like S3 buckets, SNS notifications, Azure Event Grid notifications as well, or like I said, receiving emails or even uploading to an FTP site, just for example. So we can go ahead and start this automation, and I'll actually just drop the file in and we'll talk about the rest of it as it's doing its thing. So this will be checking this directory every 5 seconds. And this is just a local directory on my FME or on FME Cloud, but this could be any directory that FME server has access to. So if you have any mounted drives or UNC shared paths, you can be looking at those directories as well. So essentially what's going to happen is every 5 seconds, FME server, I should have started that, so I'll go ahead and re-upload it because we're looking for new and modified files. So as that's going along, it's checking the directory every 5 seconds, and once it finds a new file or a modified file, it's going to run that reporting workspace that we just showed in FME Workbench. As soon as that workspace completes, be it successful or failure, we want to notify people. So if it's a successful translation, we want to notify the key stakeholders, letting them know that, hey, this automation ran and your new business license report is available. Here you can download it, or you could even attach it in the email itself. The other option is if the workspace fails, I need someone to know so they can look into this and find out, why did this workspace fail? We need to figure this out so our business can keep moving. So that should be coming along. And once you, this is from 2 days ago, so it might be still processing. But this will look at what the email will look like. So it's just saying, hey, just let you know this automation ran successfully, and this is the workspace name. Here's the time it ran. And you can download the file here to view it. And we'll just download and open it quickly, just to show you that it's that same file with the same summary page. And here you could go into the insert page if you want to look at the 3D map. You can do all that as well. So a little bit of a mini BI tool. So hop back into the slides here. So in summary for demo 5, what we're really aiming to do here is to automate the repetitive tasks. So there's a couple of different ways you can do this. Like I said, someone asked earlier, hey, if I don't have a FME server, can I still do something like this? And the answer is yes, you can automate jobs to run using FME Desktop and the task scheduler, but it's a little bit more limited. You won't have workspace apps and you won't have automations that are quite as robust, and you won't have as many tools at your disposal. So this is really just a way to make it more accessible to other users as well. So you can share out the workspace apps just using a simple URL. You can share it to certain groups or make it open to the public if that's what you prefer. And on the automation side, you can have that so it's pointing to any shared drive. So anyone in your organization who already has access to that drive, they can upload, and they don't even have to know that they're running FME. It'll just upload their file, process the file that you uploaded, and then return the results to wherever it writes in the workspace. So this is just a simple example of how you can combine the power of both FME and Excel to get the reports when you want, but also what reports you do want using those template files. And kind of the main takeaway from demo 5 is that automations are really easy to build. So they really are very similar to the workspace experience, where you just drag and drop a couple of nodes onto the automations canvas. So in this case, looking at that screenshot, there's a directory watch, which would be a trigger. There's a workspace, so that 5 reporting workspace, that would be the action. And then the blue on the right side, which is the email, those are external actions. So that's doing something after the workspace is run. And it's just a great way that you can use Excel for simple BI reporting as well, using those template files again.
So that's a very quick whiz through of FME's capabilities with Excel. What we've looked at is Dale and Andrea showing us some straightforward tasks, joining data together, joining different sheets, testing statistics, summaries. Andrea expanded on those to show us more refinement with formatting options in FME, data validation, combining FME with SharePoint usage, which is a very closely aligned products. Then I had a quick look at how you could integrate your Excel data with other data sets and work with some location and spatial data. We also had a look at leveraging your existing knowledge in Excel so that you can create more sophisticated reports and dashboards with pivots, charts, and Chris showed us the 3D maps. And then we've wrapped up the demos with Chris showing us how to automate some of those reporting steps so that you can get consistent, repeatable jobs going on a regular basis and share those jobs with some of your colleagues. So just a reminder that Stephanie is going to be sending out an email after this webinar, and it will have a link to the webinar recording, and it will also link to all the examples that we've been using this morning so that you can grab those and have a look at them and maybe steal their ideas for your own workflows. So we're not stopping there. We're always looking at our Excel support and where we can improve it. And so we've got two things that we've added in our FME 2021 beta releases, just to give you some, sell you some vaporware. One is being able to read back images from your Excel spreadsheets if you want to do that. That's a project that Dale has been working on. And also being able to open up Excel binary or XLSB files. XLSB seems to be a format that a lot of database dumps create. And so we've had quite a few users request us for that. So that is coming in a fairly new release, near to come release of FME. Google Sheets. So what about Google Sheets? Fully supported by FME, so obviously very closely related to Excel. And just a heads up to those people that are using Google Sheets is that their API version 3 is in imminent deprecation and is going to close down at the end of this month. So you'll have to update your older FME workspaces. The instructions are there. There's a link on these PowerPoint slides that you'll be able to get, and you can follow those steps on upgrading your existing workspaces if you are using Google Sheets. So that's got to be done by the end of the month. So a link to a few resources here that we have. We've got a nice tutorial on getting started with using Excel and FME. So that's a good place to get started if you're relatively new to FME. The other good place to get started is FME training, because the one-day training also works with Excel spreadsheets, and that's available on demand or online instructor-led. We've also got a knowledge article on using Excel and pivot tables, so if you want to expand on those ideas a little bit more, maybe have a look at that article. And then there is a great customer story online about using FME workspaces from Salesforce and creating nice Excel reports from that. So there's a few resources that you can have a look at if you want to dig in a bit deeper. So yeah, you can achieve amazing things with Excel and FME using FME's Workbench, which is a workflow-based environment, so very easily documented, and you can come back to it and see exactly what you've done. No Visual Basic needed. So you can create reproducible workflows, so save time and get a wider range of great results in your Excel reporting. So get started, download FME 2021. We encourage you to, if you're already an FME user, upgrade if you're allowed to within your organization. If you're not an FME user, take advantage of our free trials. Download some of the workspaces from this webinar and have a look at them, and then apply those ideas to your own Excel data sets and problems that you might have. Got a wide variety of licensing options for FME if you want to purchase FME and move forward there. So always people available to help you find out the best licensing model for your particular organization. So you can go to safe.com/pricing to see what those will cost, and then contact us if you want to go further with using FME within your organization. And with that, I'm going to wrap up the webinar. Thank you very much for attending. And I think we're going to now stay online. We're just on the hour. So if you have any further questions, we'll sit around and answer those online here. You can keep firing them in. Otherwise, thank you very much for attending, everyone.
Nice, thanks, Mark. Yeah, beautiful timing there. It's exactly 9. We can stick around for an additional maybe like 5 minutes for Q&A. I'm not sure, Dale, Andrea, like Chris, if you guys have had a chance to look at any of the questions coming in and want to chat about any of them.
There's been lots of interesting ones for sure, and great to see people engaged, great to see people pushing the edges of the envelope. So some, kind of niche kind of ones. One that I particularly liked was someone wanting to use fan out. So in other words, they're going to name their sheets by the date and time down to the minute. And then if their process runs longer than a minute, they could get the tabs getting names that are kind of different based on the minute changing because the process was taking longer. So one way of getting around that is to use what's called a scripted parameter. And if you do a search on the internet for FME scripted parameter date time, there actually is even a little tutorial that shows up in our Knowledge Center that kind of shows you how to do that. And what that means is when the workspace starts, we'll figure out the date and time, then stash that away into what we call a scripted parameter, and then you can name your sheet or use that as part of your sheet names later on. So that was one I thought was interesting.
Awesome. I saw a couple questions come in. People are asking when the workspaces and recording is going to be available. Generally, I can get that out later today. If not, it'll definitely be up by tomorrow, but everyone will get an email so you can watch for it there.
Some folks kind of asking questions about setting up forms and having basically FME server apps be able to update Excel spreadsheets. Certainly that can be done. My suggestion is that using an Excel spreadsheet as a database behind a server app is probably a little precarious. I'd be worried about 5 people hitting it at once, and that may not be the greatest. But instead, what I'd say is use some kind of real database in the back. And then if you have need to give that out to people as a database, or sorry, as a spreadsheet, then use another FME server app to just export the database as a spreadsheet. There was questions about styling. I may have missed it, but did we cover styling at all in this webinar? But if not, there's an Excel styler that can let you style, I think, rows as well as cells. Yeah.
Yeah, Andrea had a quick demo.
Yeah, so someone was asking if we can style by cell, and yes, you can style by cell. I was just showing styling by row, but you can also set it to style by cell. So you would select an attribute and style that way.
And another kind of common theme that popped up based on Andrea's demo with joining the data was, which is the best joining tool to use in FME. We've got the feature joiner, the feature merger, and then there's a thing called the inline querier. So I've chatted out a link to an article that sort of covers that topic, which of those many tools that we have in FME for doing joins and kind of helps you decide which is the most appropriate for the task that you're trying to work on.
Wallace was asking, and it is true, in the past, if you had set up a workspace with one Excel sheet that had kind of an odd header where maybe the column names were on the third row, and then you pointed us at a different sheet, we would not honor your previous setting there. We believe that is fixed, and so it should work in modern FME. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I was testing that out actually, and I was going to show it in the demo, but to my surprise, it looked like we had fixed it. So yeah, it's we're now honoring the header, your
Header
previous
setting.
settings.
Yeah, awesome. So Wallace was using FME 2018, so there's at least a reason to go to 2020 there.
Somebody's asking whether we can create heat maps. Well, if they have the lat long, and actually that 3D map tool in Excel allows you to create heat maps within Excel.
Matthew is asking, when is FME 2021 coming out? And we know we're in the fall when we start answering and asking that question. So you can get betas right now. The betas we've made a lot of changes, and it might be a little bit of a rough time to use the betas, but if you're an adventurer, you can try them. But we will plan to be releasing in March. So that's our goal. Actually, I'll just mention that this business about reading images out of Excel, we've been able to write little images, or actually big or little images, into Excel for a long time, but reading them out was a new thing, and especially reading them out and associating them with the row that they came from. And that was actually for a workflow for a customer that wanted to load basically a product catalog that had images in it into Shopify. And so that was the workflow, and so that was what we got going, because it turns out adding images in an automated way into Shopify was sort of a pain, and this allowed that workflow to work really nice. Anything else we should talk about?
It's hard. It's hard watching the questions and doing the webinar at the same time. I don't know whether any of the Q&A folks have got any things, but it was a great range of questions that were flicking by there, that's for sure.
Yeah. Fuzzy matching. Mark, you'd know better than me, but right now FME doesn't have a built-in fuzzy matcher, but there's a custom transformer that you can download that matches fuzzily.
Yeah, I think this question is more about, well, badly spelt country names. But yeah, we do have a custom transformer for doing fuzzy matching. That would be kind of like having to join based on addresses, which might vary from one sheet to another, or one spreadsheet to another. So yeah, that is tricky. You could try that online. Let's be on the FME Hub, I think, that transformer.
Yeah. If you just type fuzzy, actually, I should just try that. If you type fuzzy into here, FEZZY, there's a few things there. Yeah. A little bit tricky. There's a fuzzy string compare from 2 data sets. That might do it. Anyway, that's an opportunity for us to dig into. Yeah. All right.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Andrea.
I want to answer the last one. So this is what the team has been working so hard on, this issue of international characters. And so I'd love to have the question here is, what if your Excel file has Greek characters in the file name and the spreadsheet name? It is true that if you are on a Windows computer that's an English computer, we will have a bit of heartache with that as of today. But right now we are working on solving this for at least people on Windows 10. Mac and Linux people don't have this issue, but on Windows 10, we think we can win once and for all. So if Istvan would like to send us that example, I think FME 2021 will solve that issue. That's exactly what we're targeting. And hopefully we're on modern Windows 10. So please do send us that file.
I will also say you might want to try using on Windows 10. There is an option for the language for the system locale to enable beta UTF-8 characters. Did I get that right, Chris?
Yep, I was just about to jump in to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen people succeed, and internally when we're testing users file names with international characters, if we enable that Windows 10 setting, we are able to read those files in, at least with 2020.
Yeah, so that's definitely with varied success. It's not going to be 100% hit rate, but it's a good option to try for a workaround. Yeah. Make sure it's not giving you funnier results on other workspaces. It should be just fine. But if you do want to look for that, just go into your Windows settings, search for language, and then just on the right side in related settings, you'll see there's going to be an administrative language settings option. That'll open up a new dialog where you can change your system locale and enable Unicode UTF-8 for worldwide language support. And you'll probably have to restart your machine, but.
Yeah, and one of the dev team just chimed in that as of FME 2021, folks won't have to do that explicitly because we will detect if your Windows is new enough and kick FME into that mode, and it'll all, open quotes, just work.
Yeah, well, there you go. We learn something new for us every day too.
Okay.
Well, I think that looks pretty good. I'll mention that if anyone has questions after the webinar and you want a way to reach us, we have live chat on our website at safe.com. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see an option for live chat, so you can reach us there anytime. And same with the community. The community is probably one of the best places that you can reach us at safe.com/community. It's where all our experts go to hang out.
Yep.
So you can definitely chat your questions there. Cool. So yeah, I think with that, I'll probably close her down and we will chat to you at the next webinar, which is oh gosh, what is it? It's like our mobile app ones. Dimitri's going to be doing it with FME AR and FME DX. So that's going to be a cool one next week on the Wednesday. So hope to see you there.
Awesome.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thanks, guys.
Everyone for joining.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.